Everybody, welcome to the first SNL Stats Roundtable. It is my pleasure to welcome some amazing guests here. So for those of you who haven't checked out the SNL Stats Twitter feed, feel free to follow along. And what I'm going to be doing this season 46 of SNL, premiering October 3rd, is after every episode, I'm going to be doing a roundtable with some very special guests. And what does that mean? So I'm going to explain. And if you've been following the Twitter account, I've been posting stats of every single episode because for 45 years, they've had maybe, Dave, you could tell me, but I think it's about almost 900 episodes of SNL. Am I right?
Around there, yeah.
Yeah. So I've gone back 46 years and watched every single episode of SNL and gone through and taken stats for every single episode. And I posted them to a Twitter account called @SNL Stats, which I invite everyone to come and follow, where I posted information about every host, every guest, everyone who joins the show and is part of it. And I've gotten some really interesting feedback from people in the community who seem to love statistics and love looking at the show from more of a macro perspective. So for our SNL Stats Roundtable, we're going to be doing something really interesting where I'm going to bring on a bunch of guests every week, other podcast hosts, which you're going to get to meet tonight, different members of the community, some super fans who love the show. We're also going to have some journalists that cover the show. And we're going to talk about SNL from a little bit more of a macro perspective. So going into season 46 and an election year with COVID happening, it's a really interesting time for Saturday Night Live. And I want to discuss it and see how this era of the show relates to other eras of the show. So I hope you all join us on this journey. It's my pleasure to introduce some guests that are with us tonight. So first off, I'm going to introduce my man, Dave Buckman, who is an actor, producer, does some improv. He's a host, and he's a frequent guest on another one of the podcasts that I love to follow, the SNL After Party podcast. So Dave, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you for having me. I should point out right away, I looked up the amount of episodes, and we're going into episode 890.
Wow.
But I've been doing improv and sketch for about 25 years, maybe a little bit more than that. I'm a Second City alumni, Boom Chicago alumni. I've worked with some cast members back in their heyday, and they're coming up in the trenches. I've been directing, producing, performing, teaching improv and sketch all that time as well. And I own a theater in Austin, Texas called Cold Town Theater, and I produced the Out of Bounds Comedy Festival for the last 10 years and the Austin Sketch Festival that time as well.
That's awesome. And I'm thrilled to have you on the show. I know you have a lot of credibility in the community and you know a lot of people. So I'm sure people are going to be very interested to hear your opinions on SNL moving forward. And now I would like to introduce Jill and Amanda. They are the hosts of the SNL Standby Line podcast. And they have a really interesting show. So I'm going to let them tell you about it.
Okay, well, we started our show last March of, I believe, 2019, right?
Sometime recently.
Yeah, sometime recently. We basically started it because Amanda and I go to the show every week. We used to before COVID. We used to go to the show every week and we do the Standby Line. And before we even started the show, we were going to Standby Line all the time. And, you know, people had tons of questions. It wasn't, you know, the most organized thing and the most easy thing to find out about online. And we always went to the dress rehearsal and there was a lot of info that people weren't getting, a lot of cool sketches and stuff. So
yeah, we just decided that it almost started as a memory book for us to kind of keep track of what we had seen, because there was so much that we would say, what show was that one sketch that was cut in? And we couldn't remember. So we keep a log now.
And then it kind of just turned into like teaching people how to do Standby Line because there's a lot of people that want to know.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. I mean, you keeping a log, I would say, is like me when I'm watching the show and I'm taking stats about everything that's happening. It's very similar to what you guys are doing when you watch the show. So I love how nerdy you are about everything, and especially the Standby Line. Speaking of nerds, I don't know any better nerds than Darin and John, who host the SNL Nerds podcast. So we have Darin Patterson with us. Darin, tell us a little bit about your show.
Sure thing. I'm Darin Patterson. I co-host a podcast called SNL Nerds with my buddy John Trumbull. We're two stand-up comedians who live in the beautiful state of New Jersey, and we just love Saturday Night Live. So each episode we talk about the most recent episode of SNL. We record usually Sunday afternoon, so we like it's fresh right there in our minds. And the days where there's no new episode, we'll talk about like an SNL movie, like like we just recently put out an episode about Mean Girls. We've seen a ton of movies this year. King of Staten Island. We actually did an interview with the guy who co-wrote King of Staten Island, Dave Cyrus. And it's just a podcast just dedicated to all things SNL. We talk about the history of it. We'll talk about the gossip about it, and our favorite guests, our favorite cast members, our favorite musical guests. We go make jokes and we go off on tangents. It's all things Saturday Night Live. So we're on the Non-Productive Network, so you could listen to us at non-productive.com. We're also on Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, and you can follow us on Twitter at SNL Nerds Show.
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us, everybody. I can't wait to continue to listen to your coverage. And it was really important for me because this is the first episode that I'm putting out to everybody. But I want people to know, because I'm a part of other communities too, but the SNL community has been so welcoming to me. And I want to be clear for all the fans that I'm not looking to compete with any other podcasts. I want to be something that is in addition to the other coverage that's out there. And that was something that I made very clear to our guests tonight, and something that I want to encourage other people who want to join us, because there's a lot of amazing people who watch the show every week and do sketch by sketch recaps. And they go through everything and discuss it from a comedic sense. For me, it's just very important to talk about where SNL is in 2020 compared to every single year before. So we have some amazing historians that are joining us to talk about everything. So that's who we all are. And now we're going to kind of get into the show a little bit more. So this is going to be pre-recorded for anybody who's listening, but we are going to be streaming live, hopefully on Monday nights after the episodes. So you guys can ask us some questions during the show to our guests, and we can talk with the audience, because I want this to be an interactive experience for anyone who is listening. So that's the introductions. Let's go with our first topic, which I want to talk about tonight. There was some really interesting articles that came out in the preseason. So we had Jesse David Fox, who wrote for Vulture, who wrote an article about his interview with Lorne Michaels. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. That was the first piece of really big information we got in the preseason, where we got to hear that Jim Carrey is going to be playing Biden. So that was a big deal, because throughout the series, we've had Sudeikis play Biden for a long time. We've had other different cast members. I think we had Woody Harrelson do it for a little bit last year. And then out of nowhere, here comes Jim Carrey, who hasn't always had the best history with the show. I believe he hosted in season 40, if you guys remember. And I think there was like a little bit of, he was a little standoffish with some of the cast members. That's what I remember. I'm not sure. Obviously, being all fans, we don't know what happens on the ins and outs every day. But I just thought it was an interesting choice. So I'll start with you, Dave. Tell me what you think about this choice for Jim Carrey to play Biden and where the show is headed.
I think it's a great choice. I'm very excited about it. I think Jim Carrey can do no wrong when it comes to sketch comedy. He's going to find a hook or an angle sometime. Somehow, and just write it home. I mean, he's a brilliant sketch performer. The article mentioned that whoever it is has to kind of stay in New York for the time being, and perhaps Jason didn't want to commit to that. I mean, that would be the only reason I would think to. Jason didn't want to be doing it, but also, Colin Jost just went on Howard Stern a couple weeks ago and kind of was going on and on about how much he loves Jim Carrey, and how he's always been a huge super fan of Jim Carrey. So them working together on those sketches, I can imagine, is a natural fit for Colin, maybe even more comfortable for Colin, because he's the Jim Carrey episode was his favorite growing up, and he got to write with him on that Elvis episode. So I imagine it's very exciting for him, and being a head writer, I'm sure he had a lot to do with that decision.
Yeah, definitely. And I always remember even that sketch that he did where he was in the pool. That was to me like an all-time classic Jim Carrey sketch. So like I said, I mean, an amazing career, probably some ups and downs, but if they love him, I think that's really cool. And go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
He's an amazing impressionist. He started as an impressionist, so I don't think there's anything he's not going to find a hook in either. So
yeah. Jill and Amanda, I'll go to you. Do you guys have anything about Jim Carrey playing Biden?
I mean, I think it's really interesting, the trend of having other comedians coming in to like stick with a role the way that, you know, Maya Rudolph is doing, Kamala and things like that. I think it's interesting, a really interesting choice to have outsiders, I guess, come in and do those roles when I think a lot of people think it's unfair, especially with the cast being so big, that somebody on the cast isn't doing it.
I was going to say we're from like the world of Stan Twitter and stuff. And a lot of Stan Twitter is like really not too happy with it because, you know, they say, you know, we have this huge cast that they feel so passionate about and that they're giving these roles away to other people. But I personally think it's smart because SNL is in a very weird time right now and they need any kind of like hype that they can get, and having Jim Carrey as Biden is a huge hype, and that's going to really pull people in.
Yeah, not to mention, I can't speak highly enough of what it would feel like for me as, like, I grew up with, like, The Mask, you know what I mean? That kind of era. And just being able to see Jim Carrey live on stage would blow my mind.
Well, I guess I'm kind of in between Dave and Jill and Amanda, where part of me feels like, I mean, it is Jim Carrey, who's an amazing sketch performer, maybe one of the best. Like, he almost made it onto SNL twice, but he's done incredible things while he was on SNL. I mean, people forget about that Roxbury Boy sketch. Like, he was like, I think it was in the first time they ever did that sketch. He was like one of the guys with the, you know, what is love head nut thing. So, like, I'm excited to see that part, to see what he'll bring to it, and I just, you know, I love him as a sketch performer, but on the other hand, I do see this whole kind of this like stunt casting, the way they're just, you know, kind of using or just having him come on to do this performance of Biden when they literally have like you know 20 performers there on, you know, ready to, that should, like, one of those performers should be able to do like a Biden impression. I mean, I guess it's something that kind of got started maybe like back when with the Tina Fey, Sarah Palin impression. Like, that's like once they saw all the buzz they got off of that, then they slowly started to have more and more celebs come in and do, you know, the political impressions. Like this past with the Democrats, they had like Dratch come in for Klobuchar, and, you know, Kamala and Maya Rudolph, and now it seems like it's just their thing. Like, anytime you'll see like a celebrity, or anytime you see like somebody in the political sphere, they just have a celebrity come on and play. They'll have, you know, De Niro come in, or they'll have Matt Damon come in to play, you know, Kavanaugh. And it's I don't know. It just seems, I don't know. It just seems like you have like all the performers that are supposed to be able to do everything and, you know, do all these impressions. You should have them in the light. Like, it seems like a thing where the performers, the show, I always felt like the show was there to sort of make the performers into stars. And so when you have people who are already stars come in and take, you know, to do that performance of a politician, it seems kind of like cheating to me. But I get why you do it, just because, you know, like you guys said, you need more people you needed more eyes on it. But I don't know, I'm still like iffy on it.
Personal favorite was Leslie Jones as Donald Trump. Like, more of that, please.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere.
Sorry, Dave, were you going to pipe in there?
I was just going to say that, you know, I don't think they're going to have anybody do Biden that's not the best Biden they can get.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If Alex Moffat does a better Biden, I'm sure he would have gotten that role. But also, I'd rather have Alex and Mikey working on sketches that have nothing to do with any of this. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And they're also doing the Trump kids. So
it's an interesting choice that they're going with. I want to talk a little bit about SNL kind of as a whole. I was very curious how they were going to be able to do this. We didn't know if they were going to continue to do the at-home shows or if they were going to start doing back in the studio. It seems like they're going full out back in the studio, the regular SNL that you've known for 45 years. And they're actually going to be having some people in the audience. I don't know if you guys saw this last night, but there was actually some tickets being released, I believe, for some healthcare workers.
That's why we have our phones out, because we're anxiously awaiting the email.
Okay. So I wasn't sure. Is Jill and Amanda, you have to tell me, is it only it's not only healthcare workers. They're actually opened up some tickets to the general public?
Yes. What happened was that they opened tickets. They opened 4 slots of tickets, a dress rehearsal live show for public, and then a dress rehearsal and a live show for healthcare workers. The general public tickets went sold out in minutes. I mean, we were lucky to get an application in on the wait list quickly, but they were sold out in minutes, and all that was left was healthcare workers. And in order to even apply as the healthcare workers, the guests that you had to bring with you also had to be healthcare workers. They couldn't just be your friend, you know?
And it was a quantity of 9, I think, for healthcare workers. And, you know, I don't know if you saw, they had like rules written on the page that were things like, if not all of your party arrives, then none of your party will be seated. So, you know, people couldn't like apply if they didn't really have a group of people who were heading to the studio.
And it was basic stuff that the cast was having to follow too. Like everybody was going to have to get every guest who shows up is going to have to get a rapid COVID test. And that's why we normally go in for the show for dress rehearsal about 7 p.m. On these tickets, they want you to show up at 5:45. So they're going to be doing a lot of like questions, COVID testing. There's a lot of states. If you're from those certain states, you're not even allowed to request tickets. So they're doing a lot with that. And actually registration has already closed for this weekend. It just closed tonight. So completely.
They deleted their posts off Twitter. So
no, they didn't. I re-looked at, well, IOTA deleted it, but SNL did not. So we're waiting to see what happens.
So that's super interesting. If we turn to another article, which is the Dave Itzkoff article from the New York Times, which he released a few days ago, he had an interview with Lorne where they kind of talked about the protocol for how SNL is going to be run this year. And I thought there were some really interesting questions that were asked, which was hypothetically what happens if a cast member ends up testing positive, what they're going to do. And it seems like they said everyone's going to go into quarantine for a couple of weeks. I guess per New York state regulations. So I don't know how that's going to affect the show. Obviously, our hope is that everybody stays safe and healthy, but we're looking at like a really touchy situation here where I assume that, you know, they're going to say show goes on, but are we quarantining the entire cast, all the writers, everybody together? It just seems like a really interesting scenario. And I do compare it a lot to what's happening in these like major sports, where you have the NBA, they put them all in a bubble together, and it seems to be like a really effective scenario. Are we potentially looking at an SNL bubble at some point down the road? I just think that everything's on the table, and it seems like Lorne has described it as wait and see, and we'll kind of, you know, take it week by week. But Dave, I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Well, it's obvious that they can do an at-home episode if they need to, you know? So they have 3 not too shabby ones under their belt. So I'm not that worried about, like, if they got to go quarantine, they can still do an episode. That's not a problem. I think they also might, you know, they'll take criticism for having 20 cast members, but that's actually a good thing because that article also mentioned that Keenan's got a show to tape. Cecily and Aidy have some other filming commitments as well.
Yeah, Cecily's actually not going to be there for the first show, and I don't know how many more because she's actually in Vancouver right now, so she's not even going to be there for the first. And because of quarantine situations, she's probably not going to be there for the first few episodes at all. But they did say they're going to green screen her in.
She can tape in Ginny Pirro anytime.
Yeah, exactly.
She'll be in the episodes. You know, Eddie Murphy did his last season completely on tape.
So yeah, I was going to say that they do have a history at the show. I mean, I know for many years there were people who said, "Oh, can I take off the fall to film a movie?" And Lorne was like, "No." But when you have major stars, especially ones that have been around for almost 10 seasons now,
right? Considering
the situation, I think they're going to make some exceptions.
It also makes a difference when it's Lorne's show because she's working on Lorne's show. So
yeah.
So yeah, like having 20 cast members might actually be helpful in this regard, that we can go down to 13 and still be okay.
Yeah, so that is something I want to talk about because this has been, and I know Jill and Amanda, you guys are saying that you guys are you know, big on Twitter and stan Twitter, but you know, one of the things that came out in the last couple of weeks was how big this cast is going to be, and we're very fortunate to have 3 new cast members. I, as somebody who analyzes the show from more of a statistical perspective, I try and stay off like the hot take radar. But I've been saying for years that I think the cast is way too big. You know, when you start going back, and this is for anyone who ends up doing this and goes to start watching in 1975, yeah, they had a lot of writers, appear in some sketches and stuff like that. But you're talking about like 7, 8, or 9 cast members who you really got to know, and they were celebrities. Like these were people who were like superstars from the moment they were on the show. And my argument to a lot of people who are watching SNL right now is I'm not really sure that SNL develops stars in the way that they used to. And I'm looking at 20 cast members on the show. That just seems like a lot. So Darin, I'll bring you in here. For somebody who's watched the show for a long time, give me your 2 cents on 20 people in the cast.
That's just way too many. 20 is just too damn much. Like, I mean, it makes me think that, I don't know. I mean, I don't have no proof of this, but I really do think that maybe last season some cast members were gonna go, and then COVID hit, and so maybe the people in SNL were like, well, you can't. That's when everything became very uncertain, and I kind of feel like they kind of had to stick around because like they didn't get their big send off or a big goodbye episode, and so then they stayed till this season, and then we have 3 more people, which I don't know. That's another thing I got to think about. Like, well, how did these 3 other cast members get on? Like, were there auditions during this COVID thing, or did they audition beforehand? Like when they thought people were going to leave, so they would be able to come in, or what? So I don't know. It just seems like a ton of cast members now. I really do think like I wouldn't be surprised if like after this season or even maybe during this season some cast members like kind of said their final goodbyes and bowed out.
There was wouldn't one of those articles drop like a hint that Kate McKinnon's only like here for the election shows?
Well, she's I don't know if y'all saw the article that came out or the news, but Kate is actually going to be filming in 2021 her show in Australia, her Joe Exotic, Carol Baskin show. She's actually going to start filming that. I think they said at the beginning of the year, springtime. So, I mean, she's going to be in Australia, so I highly doubt she's going to be there for a couple months. So it seems like she's only going to be there for part of the season.
Statistical perspective, this is, to me, unprecedented what they're doing at SNL, which is basically having a pool of people that they can use on a weekly basis, but we don't know who's going to show up. And,
exactly.
I assume everyone's going to be in the credits, but then, we're going to be waiting all night to see, like, I know that, I think it was last year that Pete wasn't there he was filming a movie at the beginning of the season.
Right, Suicide Squad, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And so for us, it's going to be like, we're going to be looking and it's going to be, is Kate even showing up tonight, or is Cecily, what's the deal with her? And I guess for the people who are a little bit like more entrenched in these people's careers, we'll kind of have an idea who's filming a movie at that point. Jill and Amanda, but
yeah, that's us.
But for people, for the casuals who are watching SNL, it's going to be a little bit confusing why some of their favorite cast members who are supposedly still on the show are not there. But I guess they really don't have a choice given the situation. One of the consequences of keeping these people as long as they are is that you have you have about maybe 2/3 of the cast that's extremely experienced, and then you just have a few newcomers who haven't had the time to build out their roles in a way that I think Lauren would trust them to carry the show. So I don't know if Jill and Amanda, you want to jump in there?
Well, I mean, I was thinking not to mention some of the cast members that I could pinpoint who I feel are criminally underused, and just having such a big cast makes it difficult to get them airtime. I mean, I agree. I think you can kind of see some of the cast members, like Heidi is jumping to mind, being sort of like ushered in. Like you can kind of see them pulling her.
And Chloe.
And Chloe now too. But I mean, I don't know. I'm excited that we still have another season with, my personal faves, but I do worry about that.
But I kind of agree with what Dave said, is that, I mean, they're going to be in and out so much, especially with COVID, that I don't think we're going to get a single episode where all 20 cast are there and in every single episode. It's almost impossible that we're going to get one episode for that. And it kind of is like he's having an A team and a B team and like substitutes and stuff. And
first and second string almost.
Right. And I mean, like you said, you can green screen anyone in at any time. So but I just don't think it's possible in a, what is it, hour and a half show to get 20 people in every single episode.
Yeah, I mean, I do wonder if this is one of those seasons where we're going to see somebody's last episode that isn't at the end of the season. Like, I don't know if we're talking about like a Kate potentially. We don't know anything, but we're saying like maybe somebody leaves at Christmas, maybe somebody leaves in February.
You're going to upset many people saying that.
don't please watch the shows. Don't leave us. But that's super interesting. And I know that there's, we talked about Heidi Gardner and Chloe Fineman. I mean, these are people who are starting to make a mark for themselves. And I do hope that, this is the beginning of them slowly taking over the show. When we're talking about the entire history of the show, we're looking at 46 seasons right now. My guess is that Lorne wants to be on until at least season 50. I think that's like a major mark. He did something huge for the 40th. He did something for the 25th, the 15th. But I think SNL 50, hopefully we're at a place in the world where everything's okay in a few years from now. But I think, that would be an amazing story for 50 years of comedy. Now, that's not to say that SNL will end after 50 years, but I think that there will be, that's a mark where you can look at as potentially a transition of Lorne to someone else. And I'm wondering if what we're looking at, 4 or 5 years away from that is the beginning of a transition to Lorne's final cast that he's putting together for the end of his run. That I know it's a little bit of like a big
that hurts our feelings.
Well,
my favorite person is not even going to be in the final cast.
Well, so that's where it's interesting because one of the things that I talked about is that I was telling Dave earlier that I interviewed a bunch of superfans, which are going to be coming on with us in the next few weeks. These are people who have watched the show for many years. And one thing that came in common was Lorne's line, which was, your favorite cast is always going to be the one that was on when you were in high school. And that's the one that's, so like, that's the one that people love. And I'm just so curious. I mean, obviously none of us are in high school anymore, but for, the people who are watching now who are of that age, if they would connect to a 20-person cast in the same way that we all connected to our casts when we were in high school or watching, these shows when we were a little bit younger. So I know I threw out a lot there, but Dave, if you want to just jump in on that.
On specifically?
Yeah, no, do you have an opinion? Because I know that you're a big comedy fan in general about, we're kind of nearing potentially the end of Lorne's, could be putting together the end of Lorne's run of putting together these casts for almost 50 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, part of me would say maybe he wouldn't care as much by the end of like who's on the show. But I don't know. I think out of anybody out there that could take over for Lorne, I can't think of anybody besides Seth that would be good at that job.
What about Kenan Thompson?
Do you think Kenan wants to be an executive though?
I think he'd be good at it, whether or not he wants to do it. I think he'd be good.
I want Kenan in front of the camera.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing it since he was a kid, so I'm sure he knows the game, but I think he's so good in front of the camera. Seth's really organized behind the camera, as well as in front of the camera too. And I think he really enjoys writing sketch, and writing sketch for other people. He did, when I was at Boom Chicago, he wrote our corporate sketches. So he's been writing sketches for other people to perform for a long time. So I think he would actually enjoy that gig. I mean, I'm sure Kenan would do an amazing job, but Seth, I think, has executive experience, and kind of the sketch writing to mentorship as well. On top of that, but yeah, I think it's really a weird time to watch Lorne take that over, unless he just kind of wants to be producer emeritus for. He could just be there and guiding over it in just a very small and very limited capacity, but still be there. I don't think he'd ever want to stop being there Saturday nights.
Yeah, I think like I said, I don't think he's thinking about 4 or 5 years down the road. I think he's worried about getting through these first few shows after the pandemic. But it is an important note because, like I said, like we're all saying that there are people, and I put at the bottom of the screen, we have a ticker going of the cast by tenure. And we're talking about people, Keenan's been there 18 years, but people who have been there 9.5, 9, 8, 7.5 years. Most people's contracts are over the history of the show have been for about 7 years. And then usually after your 7th year, you go off and you do other things. So now we're starting to have people who are on for like an above average tenure on the show. So it'll be interesting to see that transition. Darin, do you have a comment on that?
Get my mic here. To comment on the tenure.
Yeah, the tenures and the cast and how we're going to move forward from here with such a large cast.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I mean, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if some people started to leave and take their final bows even before the end of the season. Like, I actually kind of expect it. If I had to put money on it, I would say maybe Kate, maybe, people have projects already lined up like Cecily and Aidy, even Pete too. Yeah, like I don't know. I always feel like a 20-person cast like we have now is just too much. You really can't get to know each cast member sort of individually, and it's kind of feels more like a factory, I guess, rather than like a nice little small intimate group of performers like it used to be. Yeah,
and if this is Kate's last run on the show, which we're hoping it's not, but she is one of the statistics I love to follow for those who are interested is how many times someone has said live from New York, it's Saturday night. And this is a tradition that started all the way back in the first season of the show. There was only about one season that they actually didn't do this. And it started with Chevy Chase saying it until he basically left the show. And then cast members and sometimes some guests and even some sitting presidents have said it over the years. But Kate McKinnon, for being on the show for 9.5 years, is actually in second place out of anybody who's ever said live from New York. She's 22 behind Daryl Hammond, which sounds like a lot. I don't think she would beat the record if she didn't stay on more than just this year, because usually there's no more than 21 or 22 episodes in a season. So she'd have to say it literally every episode. But I think that Kate is doing something historical. She's obviously very impactful. I could tell from Jill and Amanda's faces that they would be very upset if she left the show. So, I do want to focus on her for a second. So Jill and Amanda, tell me, what do you think? Can Kate stay on and break this record? Or do you think she's really kind of moving on to another place in her life where she's doing bigger projects?
I don't think she's going to stay.
We're on a little bit different page with this subject.
I mean, what I think about it is that I think on a personal level, I think that she hates the recognition she's getting in terms of our Stan Twitter corner of the world. I don't think she likes that very much. I think at this point she loves SNL. We know she loves being on SNL, but she has so much in the works all the time that I think that, it's going to be 9.5 years if she makes it through the season. That's a huge chunk of your life, and you grow up in that amount of time. Like, I think she's probably ready to do other things. She seems to be. She's executive producing things now, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, for those who, actually, what I would say is that a funny anecdote is every single time I tweet anything about any of the cast, so let's just say it's Alex Moffat says live from New York and then ties Dan Aykroyd, something like that. Some people are interested, get a few likes. Okay, I love Alex, great. When I tweet something about Kate McKinnon, I get like, yes, queen, slay all the other cast members. Like, there's nothing like the Kate McKinnon stands. And I think that
I just want to put ourselves out there. We are not in the Kate McKinnon stan fandom. We like her. However, she's not our favorite cast member. My personal opinion is that she has, I feel like her time is up and she needs to move on and give way to a lot of other cast members. I don't think she's untalented. I think she's extremely talented, but I think she gets a little bit more attention than necessarily some of the other cast members deserve who are equally as talented.
It's kind of like a Kristen Wiig era too, a little bit.
Can I ask you a question? Who everybody's, if you were going to name a franchise player right now, like who would you not allow to leave, even if they wanted to? Like who personally out of the cast?
Cecily Strong.
Okay, we'll elaborate on that a little bit. So why Cecily?
Well, I mean, I get a lot of backlash for this from, again, Stan Twitter, but I personally think she is more versatile. I think she's honestly the most versatile female on the show. She can do just about any impression. She can do accent. She can do singing. I think that she necessarily hasn't gotten as much attention as maybe like Kate McKinnon or other people because she hasn't maybe done as many big projects. Like Ghostbusters was a huge project for Kate and stuff. And I don't know. I think I think she's probably one of the most talented females I've seen on that show. I think like the way she puts herself into her work and her characters is incredibly just phenomenal. I'm very biased about it, but that's just what I personally think. I think that keeping her on the show would be beneficial because she, and I like this quote that Catherine O'Hara was recently talking about where Kate, she sees Kate very much, and I think we can all agree on this, is very much herself in all of her characters, and you see that. I feel like Cecily Strong is able to like put a little distance between herself and the characters, and that kind of makes all her characters like very different. All her impressions are very different. So I just think that she's so versatile that it would be super beneficial to keep her because she can do everything.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you both feel that Cecily is the best?
I mean, well, here's the. I love her. She is my favorite cast member. I wouldn't say that I come from it from as passionate a standpoint as Jill, but I do to the most part agree. And what I think about it is about Cecily is that there's a quote she gave at some point in life about wanting to be a dramatic actress, and I think that you can see in her work that she approaches it as a dramatic actress, making you laugh, kind of. And I just think it's beautiful and star quality, and I love it.
That being said, I think every single cast member on that show is a star and talented. I mean, they wouldn't be on SNL if they weren't. I think everyone is really great, and I think everyone brings something individually.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Dave, it's a great question, though, and I totally agree. Cecily is super talented. It's a great question. But before I go, Darin, who would be your person that you would like, your keeper for for SNL?
Well, first of all, Cecily Strong, I agree with you guys wholeheartedly. She's a strong, no pun intended. She's a great performer. She's always there in the clutch. She always impresses me with her comedy timing and stylings. As far as my go-to performer, I kind of narrow it down to two. I'm going to say Heidi Gardner, who I really like, her commitment to her character is really strong. It really just like right out the gate, the first time I saw her, I thought she was really impressed me. And I'm going to say Chris Redd, too. He's another, really, I don't want to say underrated because, people know he's funny, but, he kind of, you kind of forget about him a little bit. But, he has some really strong performances. It's almost like he's always been there, from the first year he was there. He just, filled the role just seamlessly. So, I would put it down between those two, Gardner and Redd.
For me, I've always been the type of person where I could just, I love all the people on SNL, but the person who comes into a scene and says a one-liner and just gets just that one line just makes me laugh. That's the person who I find is so clutch for every single cast. And to me, of course, I don't know if there's a little bit of a cop-out, but to me, that is for sure Keenan, because you could write any sketch that you want, and all you have to do is have Keenan come in for 2 seconds, and it's instantly funny. And that's just, and for someone who watched Keenan from when he was on Keenan and Kel, and I think he was on All That, and it was just from back in the day, I feel like I've grown up with Keenan. So for me, at least, that would be my answer. But I do think, I to throw another name out there, I do think Beck Bennett doesn't always get the love he deserves, but I think that Beck can just play super serious and also really ridiculous. And I just think that he's also somebody who, he's been on for 8 seasons, and it doesn't even feel like 8 seasons, but he just had so many memorable moments for me, at least over the years. But I think also Chris Redd is a great pick as well. And a really great up-and-coming cast member. Dave, I don't think you've told us who you would pick, though.
I love everything that Heidi does. I think she's an amazing actress and character player. I love watching every little nuance she throws in there. But I think my franchise player would be Cecily. I think she is an MVP. as a sketch director, you can literally throw her any kind of role. I don't think you can throw Heidi any kind of role. I think Heidi's got a very specific thing that she does really, really well. And I love watching that thing over and over and over again. I can watch it 100 different ways. But Cecily, her writing is strong. Her performing is strong. Her take on politics is strong. Her Jeanine Pirro is strong when she did. I saw Mommy Kissing Santa Claus and that the Jingle Bells thing that she did, the Jingle Bells Lounge song. Just like
Yeah, incredible.
We got to see her do that in person at a like a show outside of Saturday Night Live, and it was just as impressive.
I can imagine.
It was.
I mean, if I was going to build a sketch show around somebody in this cast, I'd build it around Cecily because she's, I think,
Thank you for saying that.
As good, if not. I mean, she's like Phil Hartman level of utility player for me. She can do absurd and reasoneer, I like to call it, instead of straight man, reasoneer.
Yeah, I totally agree. She's great, and you just made Jill Namatta's day. So let's talk a little bit about Cecily just quickly with regards to statistics. She is said live from New York 23 times, so she's 13th place on the all-time list. That's pretty high. I mean, we're talking not that Taran Killam had like incredible longevity, but I mean, she's near like Tim Meadows, who was on for 10 seasons. Sudeikis, who was on a long time. You mentioned Phil Hartman. She's not far from reaching, the top 10. To me, not that the amount of times you stay live from New York is a determining factor about how great of an SNL star you are, but it is an interesting statistic to look at, almost like looking at like batting average in the MLB, which is just like, how, they don't give those roles to just anybody, to say the opening line for the show in the cold open. And the fact that she's been given it 23 times shows me that she's been an important part of the show for 8 seasons.
There's only a certain amount of songs that the Stones will open a concert with. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I love it.
I love that analogy. It's perfect.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about the cast. So we're going to see as we go through these shows kind of, how it works. Like I said, I think they don't know how it's going to work week to week. So we're going to have to see and analyze it as the season is going. But I think lots of opportunities, especially for the younger cast. I think this is the year, anybody who's been on for, 2, 3, 4 seasons, I'm hoping that they step up this year, like we said. So moving on for that, one of the pieces of information that came out this week was that Chris Rock is going to be the first host of the season. And I had no idea how they were going to pick hosts this year. We didn't know if it was going to be only New Yorkers. We didn't know if it was going to be just only former cast members. I mean, that's kind of what's happening so far. I don't think we've had any announcements for future hosts yet. So I assume it's probably, we're not going to get maybe the usual like 3-week, run that we would get of announcements. But for me, Chris Rock is a great choice. Former cast member, someone who's like, connects with all areas of the show. So I love it. He's a former cast member from 1990 to 1993, season 16 to 18. Probably a very short run on the show, somebody who should have been there for a long time. And if you go and you ask anyone about former cast members of like, Sandler, even like Ben Stiller, it's like famous people from kind of around that time. And people talk about Chris Rock, you would think he was on the show for 10 years because just of how much of an impact he had on the show. He's also hosted twice, season 22 and season 40. So this will be his 3rd time hosting, said live from New York 3 times. And I think it'll be really interesting to see what he does. So let me head over to Darin. Darin, what do you think about Chris Rock being our first host of the season?
I think it's a great fit. I mean, of course, he's probably there to promote, the show Fargo that he's on now that just came out. But I really do think it's like a good fit for him, just because like he has that sort of no nonsense way of speaking. Like, of course, like every time they have like a stand-up comedian host, the comic goes into his act and sort of talks about the state of the world. Like when Dave Chappelle hosted, it was right after 2016 and that election, and he kind of had some things to say that sort of really sort of encapsulated the moment we were all feeling. And I think Chris Rock will do probably the same thing. Like he's an amazing comedian, and like he'll probably have a great take on all of this that's happening. And he'll probably have some like sort of words of wisdom, and that'll like really kind of, like encapsulate what we're all feeling, what we're all going through right now. And I don't know, I think it's a great fit.
Yeah. Jill and Amanda, what about you guys? What do you think about Chris Rock being the first host of the season?
Do you have an opinion on this?
I mean, I'm stoked about it. I am not super familiar with his run on the show, but it's like you said, John, is when you think about him and his history with the show, even though I wasn't watching, it's like it feels like he is a part of the show's history and he hasn't gotten lost in that. And so I think it's really great because, as Darin was saying, encapsulating the moment and all of that, maybe we need something really familiar that fits like the way I think that he will. Yeah. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, I love that. I think familiarity is important. One of the weirdest parts about, everything is shutting down in the spring. There's obviously a lot of horrible things going on. And it was a little bit comforting to turn on SNL for these 3 at-home episodes and just to see the people that and to know that they're at home too. But it was a little bit weird not to see everybody at Studio 8H. And I think having Chris Rock up there on stage, coming out, I don't know if everyone is going to have plexiglass between each band member or what it is, but when he walks out on stage to whatever audience there is going to be, I think that's just going to be a moment for everybody who loves the show to say like, okay, despite how the world is, this is maybe our first step back a little bit to some normalcy. Dave, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Chris Rock is comfort food as a host. I think that's what we're all eating anyway, big bowls of hot comfort food. And that's certainly what Chris Rock is, if not comedy fans, definitely SNL fans. I can't wait to see what Nat X says about Trump. That to me is, I hope to God they're writing that sketch. It's one of his recurring characters for all you young kids out there.
Yeah, the dark side.
The dark side, right. Probably not going to get the one
I'm chilling.
I'm chilling, yeah. We're not going to get I'm chilling. So I think
unfortunately not. Yeah.
Probably was a big part of that one. So, yeah, I think he's the right host for right now. I'm sure we're going to get Jim Carrey in the next couple weeks as a host just because he's there and it's going to be a lot easier. But yeah, I think Chris Rock is a great choice, and I'm super excited. Who isn't a fan of Chris Rock?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, on the first episode that we're going to do after like this time next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about the actual, legacy of Chris Rock and the characters and things like that. So I'll hold off on that for now, but I did want to get your 2 cents on kind of his legacy and everything. And yeah, so we cover the cast, we cover the host. What I want to do before we end our show today is I want to do some hot takes and predictions about the season. So, I talked a little bit of kind of where the show is headed, but I figured it would be fun because I have some other podcast hosts from the community to kind of talk about some predictions for the season. And this is what I think we can do. I'm going to have them here, and then maybe when the season's over in the postseason, I'll kind of have the same panel back, and we'll talk about our predictions and discuss about how wrong we were about everything that's going to be happening this season. So how do you guys feel about that?
Okay.
About putting your feet to the fire. Okay.
Let's do it.
Right.
Let's start with which cast member we think is going to say live from New York the most this season. Okay. All right. So, Darin, I'll start with you.
Jim Carrey.
Well, Jim Carrey could be an option. So, if you want, I'll write them down. If you want to lock in with Jim Carrey, we could do that.
Which cast member will say it the most? I mean, I was gonna say Kate, but then you guys said that she's out shooting somewhere, so that's a little insider tip there. I'm gonna, I'll go with Keenan. It's a safe bet. I'll say Keenan.
Good choice. He's 8th on the Live from New York list at 32 times. Okay. So, Jill and Amanda, how about you guys?
I'm going to play strategically. So, it's obviously a political season, and which means it's going to be a political year, whether Trump gets elected or Biden gets elected. And so I think if we're just going on cast members, I think that Beck would, or I'm sorry, excuse me, who plays Mike Pence?
Yeah, Beck.
Beck.
That's
Yeah,
Beck.
that's what I thought, but I was really second guessing myself. If Trump happens to get elected, I mean, I would say that Beck has probably a pretty good chance. If it goes the other way, then it probably isn't going to be a cast member at all. So I really don't know who to guess.
You got to give me one person.
Does it have to be a cast member, or can it be like somebody who's like basically a cast member? Like,
So can it be Jim Carrey? Is what she's saying.
Yeah, that's fine. So give me the person who in season 46 is going to say "Live from New York" the most.
I'm just gonna go big. I'm gonna say Kate.
Okay.
She's not gonna do it. She's not gonna be there half the season. I don't know.
You can lock in with Jim Carrey if you want.
Yeah, I guess I will because that's what I'm hopeful for. So.
Okay. Dave, what about you?
I think even if he loses, Trump isn't going away from our lives for a while, so I'm going to lock in.
That's what I'm also thinking.
So if you wanted to outswap you Baldwin for Jim Carrey, I was going to go with Jim Carrey. I'm just taking Baldwin because I want an outside chance of winning this myself. So
no, I'm going to stick with Jim Carrey.
All right,
all right.
As much as I'm going.
So that was a good choice. I had last pick for this one, so I totally get it. I was going to go with Alec. I think that's probably a good choice. So I think I'll probably go with Beck. I'm going to say. So that's it. So we got Darin with Keenan, Jill with Jim Carrey, Amanda with Kate, Dave with Baldwin, and me with Beck. Okay.
All
so
right.
let's say I want you all to give me somebody who is going to host this season that is a former cast member, not Chris Rock.
Oh, a former cast member.
A former cast member who's going to host the season. Somebody who, it could be somebody who's hosted many times before. It could be somebody who is never hosted and now's the time to bring them back. So tell me which former cast member is going to come and host this season.
I just want to say that last season, I had like 5 guesses that ended up actually being correct the entire season.
This is Jill's wheelhouse.
This is my wheelhouse, but it's not always necessarily like former cast members. Like, I guess musical guests, I guess hosts. Because I think this is because Standby Line is our thing, and we have to be so careful about how Standby Line is going to look that week that I pretty much map out the whole season of what's going to happen. But this year it's obviously different. I haven't looked into it.
I'm going to say Kristen Wiig.
I was going to say Kristen Wiig, but I don't. Well, I mean, back in the beginning of the year, I had said Kristen was going to host the finale, and she did. But I don't think she's going to be back because she did that, and she just had kids.
Okay,
so I don't think it's going to be Kristen Wiig.
Okay,
I think.
Well, who is it going to be?
I'm not guessing who I'm going to be. I'm guessing who I want it to be, and I would really, really love to see Amy Poehler come back.
Okay,
that's my guess.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so Jill's going with Poehler. Amanda, are you going with Kristen Wiig, or are you going to change it?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it.
Okay.
You're having bad guesses.
Perfect. Dave, I think I know who you're going to say, but let me hear it.
Well, I don't know. I have 2 that I've been dying for a long time that I've never hosted. I was hoping this would be the year that Jason would host. We go way back. We went through classes together in Chicago and boom, Chicago together. So
that's a good guess.
I love watching him. I've always wanted, but if Jim Carrey's there doing Biden, it'd be weird to have Jason there and not do Biden. But the only other person I would kill to see host would be Jane Curtin. I know it's never going to happen, but I want that closure. I want that détente to come to. I feel like that's the last full circle. So,
Dave, let me just say something about that, because that is something that I was thinking about for a long time, especially when you go and you watch the first 5 years and you think to yourself, I know that Gilda Radner was once going to host and then the season got cut short and she got sick, unfortunately, and then she was never able to host. And I always said to myself, I don't understand why they don't have Jane come and host, or Lorraine. You had Dan Aykroyd host before. Chevy's obviously hosted a million times. For me, it just like it would make sense to bring one of them back to host, and I would love to see that. I know that Jane has had an interesting opinion of the show over the years, but when she came back for the 40th and sat down with Tina and Amy, I thought it was a shoo-in that she was going to host one of the next few years. So I'm stunned that she didn't. But I'll send it back to you. So tell me who you think, because I just want to jump in there because I've had such a thought about that the last few years.
My hope would be Jane. I don't think it's going to happen, especially this year. I'm dying for Jason. I don't know if he's not doing Biden. I don't know why. Anyway, I am going.
But they might give it to Jason as kind of like a consolation prize.
Yeah, perhaps. perhaps. I am going to go Bill Murray.
I love that. That's a great guess.
He's got some projects on the fire coming out. He's certainly in that new Wes Anderson movie, and he's got a new Sofia Coppola movie. So if they can get, octogenarian Bill Murray to do a COVID show, I'm sure he'd be up for it.
Okay, Darin, what about you?
Sorry, I was just looking through the list of SNL guys. I'm trying to rev up my brain. As far as former cast members, I mean, I would love it if, like, Dana Carvey would come back, but I don't know. Sometimes he won't. I'd love it if Will Forte came back. Will Forte would be awesome host. But I mean, if I'm playing the odds, I got to go with Maya Rudolph. I think she's a shoo-in.
Sure.
Oh, that is a great guess.
Yeah, I mean, Kamala Harris. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So Will Forte, I was going to say, Will Forte is my all-time favorite cast member. There's nobody that makes me laugh in the way that he does, and I don't know why. I wish I could explain it to people. I've had people say, like, why do you think he's so funny? And I don't know. There's just like a sense of something with Will Forte, and it's probably like your love, Jill and Amanda, for Cecily is my love for Will Forte.
Well, I also like Will Forte.
Okay, we're good. We're on the same page.
I've never heard anybody trash talk him.
That's true.
Yeah. Yeah, so I would love that. I'm gonna go. I think Maya Rudolph was a great guess. I'm gonna go Jimmy Fallon. I think that Fallon, he's in the building already, already kind of quarantined. I just feel like that's just like such an easy person to come back and be the host there. So I think it's probably been I think it's been a couple years since he's hosted. So I feel like a Fallon Christmas show or something like that, probably gonna happen. So those are some interesting picks. Let's do a couple more. So give me somebody who's going to host who is not a former cast member, somebody who you think is like a shoo-in to host the season. Jill, I know you're like chomping at the bit. So
no, well, I am. I mean, like I said, I haven't been like doing my thing like I normally do. So I don't really know. Like I've kind of accepted that there's not going to be Standby Line this season, so I haven't really looked into it because I personally watch the show for like the cast members, so I don't really week to week care who hosts or whatever. Like I enjoy seeing everyone. I mostly just, I just do it for the fun. But I don't know. I have to think about it for a minute.
Okay. Does anybody have anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I don't know any media that's coming out anytime soon, and that's
there are a lot of big movies, but they're not coming out until 2021.
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if that's the case, and there's a lot of people who don't have a lot of stuff to promote right now. I wonder if it's time to bring back some hosts from the past who are not necessarily former cast members always, but people who have hosted.
I know who I'm gonna guess.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I'm
gonna guess John Krasinski because he missed out on his episode.
That's true.
It's a great call. Yeah,
I'm gonna steal that.
No, you're not. I got it first.
No, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go.
He was the only person who was like slated to be a host, so I feel like it's a shoo-in, like it was ripped from him. So.
Yeah, that's a great call. Dave, what you were about to say?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Gal Gadot just because Wonder Woman's coming out and Kristen Wiig's a tie-in, so we get a Kristen Wiig walk-on on a Gal Gadot.
I thought Gal was gonna be the premiere host when the season was normal.
Yeah. So I think there's going to be a big Wonder Woman episode with Kristen and Gal.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So okay, that's a great call. And Amanda, did you have one? Or are you going to go Krasinski also?
No, she can't have my answer.
Well, I was just thinking like it's Kristen Wiig because I was on the same train of thought as you, Dave, is that I was thinking Wonder Woman and how that got pushed back. I don't know. Come back. I'm thinking musical guest Taylor Swift because
I thought that too.
So I'll skip host and settle on musical guest and do that.
Maybe host and musical guest.
Play the game.
I would love that so much. Come on.
I mean, this would be her second season in a row of doing it. Third season in a row of being on as a musical guest.
Why not?
She's like sneaky great. Like every time it's like, oh okay, but then she ends up always doing really well.
Yeah. Ready to host. You hosted before?
Taylor Swift, yeah, she's hosted. She has hosted.
Yeah, yes.
I don't think she would host, but I do think she would do musical guests.
I don't know though. She's might do the hosting thing.
Yeah, season 35. She hosted. She was in that like Twilight sketch. That's like in all of the the like best of stuff. Okay. So we'll mark down Taylor Swift for you.
We'll do Taylor Swift.
Okay. All right, Darin, what do you think?
I was just looking through people. I was trying to think of people who've never hosted. I don't know. Part of me, I know Will Smith never did it, and part of me would be kind of interested in seeing how that would play out. I mean, he's good at comedy. I mean, he's always has something to promote. I think that'd be an interesting choice. And I know he'd probably never do it, but I would love to see Stephen Colbert host this SNL. But
well, if we're talking about people we'd like to see.
I'm just bringing it up. I don't know. I'm just wishing on the star here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to see him do it.
All right. So you want me to lock in with Will Smith for you?
Yeah. Do Will Smith. The Colbert thing was just me pontificating.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm gonna go. So I was thinking, who can we get that is quarantined that makes sense to go in there? And I think the perfect person is probably ScarJo. She is quarantined with one of the cast members, so it kind of just fits really well.
You think they would bring her back to host again so soon?
I don't know at what depth, how desperate are they for hosts
right.
to get somebody there.
I mean, my take on that is that if they're open and confident in letting people from the public into the studio, then they're probably feeling pretty confident with the hosts and cast members, because at least with those people, when you're booked to be a host, you quarantine yourself. They're kind of just assuming and trusting that these audience members are going to quarantine when there's really, I mean, you could fly in from any state you want and lie between your teeth. But so I think if they're trusting enough with the general public that they're going to be running the show as normal as possible.
Okay. Yeah, you could totally be right. Okay, so I have a couple more. We'll get through them pretty quickly. So give me the cast member that you think will be in the highest percentage of sketches this season. So this is the person who has the most screen time out of all the cast members this coming season. All right, Dave, we'll start with you.
Oh boy, I'm going to go Mikey Day. I think he'd live in his office if he could. I mean, he's got quite the kids. He seems like a sketch machine to me. That will just pump out sketches. I imagine Mikey in his 20s just doing push-ups and sketch writing, and that's all he did for his.
He was bred in a lab just to be on SNL.
Yeah. So I don't think he's going to be taking any outside projects. I think he writes a lot for himself. And he doesn't seem to be. He's up there in seniority without having any announced projects to go do. So I think he works himself a lot of sketches, and he's a great utility player that everybody else wants to use too.
All right, Darin, how about you?
I mean, my first thought was Keenan. I mean, I know he has all the other projects and stuff to do, but something tells him he's going to find a way to be on way more sketches than anybody else on that show. So I'll stay with Keenan. Okay. He's a workhorse.
Jill.
Well, I was going to say Keenan too, but are we talking about them being in a sketch or their screen time?
Screen time.
So yeah, I'm going to say I want to track this, so I'm going to try and do I mean, we are the statistics department here, so I'm going to try and track. I don't think I'm going to time every single time somebody comes into a sketch and walks out of a sketch, but I think general idea is someone is in for the majority of a sketch. You count that. Someone walks in, walks out is probably half a point. So I'll probably do it something that way, just to make it simple.
I was only asking because I didn't know if you had last year made that graph, because someone had made that graph that showed the exact screen time and stuff.
Yeah, I apologize if you're listening. I don't remember who made that, but they've been doing that for years.
Either.
Yeah,
I don't either.
It was on Reddit somewhere.
Yeah. Anyways, okay. I want to say Keenan, but that answer is taken. I'm going to go outside the box. I think I'll go with Heidi.
Okay, that's a great call. Amanda,
I'm gonna say Beck, because I think Beck is so sneaky with the way he weaves. He's weaving into his sketches all the time.
Yeah, that was gonna be my pick. So I'm just gonna think.
You're getting the short end of the stick on everything.
Yeah, that's what happens when you host. You end up going last, and you're not sure. I think. You know what? Nobody chose Cecily, so I'll go with Cecily. I know you said she may not be there but when she is there, I think she might dominate. So I'll go with Cecily strong.
I'm doing that. I'm not choosing her because I don't want to jinx it.
Exactly. Okay, so this is what I want to do. So the last question I have is, give me one thing that if you could have happen in season 46 that you would love to see. And this could be like a pipe dream. It could be something that may be totally unrealistic, but something that you would love to see happen on SNL in season 46. I know Dave mentioned the whole thing about Jane Curtin hosting, so something similar to that. So anybody want to go first?
Yeah, my answer is me go to every single show.
Okay, give me something like more.
That's a pipe dream.
I would love that too, but give me something more like someone cast, so some guest star, something like cool and unpredictable.
I don't know.
I have been dying to see Rachel McAdams host SNL. I don't think that she ever will, but that's my dream. My dream is Rachel McAdams.
Okay. All right. Who's next?
I'll stick with the Colbert thing. I think it's because, like, I mean, I just know he's not going to do it because he has his very own show, like right across the way. But like, I don't know, he's a hilarious dude. I mean, I know he has that huge improv sketch background. I would love to see him. I mean, not if he doesn't host it, maybe even just be in a sketch for like a few minutes. But that's all I need. That's just need that Colbert hit.
Yeah, Dave, what about you?
I think either Jason hosting, a Jane cameo, or Jordan Peele hosting.
That's a great call.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And Jill, give me something.
I don't have anything.
If there's anything, you can make one wish to appear on screen for SNL on
so
season 46.
Oh God, I don't know. I don't know. I would like Cecily Strong not to leave the season. I don't know. I don't know. If I had to really pick something, I would really like to see Amy Poehler host.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great one as well. And
I can't think of anything.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry for putting you on the spot, but it was just
it's okay. I feel like it's one of those things, you have so many wishes that you can't think of one off the top of your head.
Yeah. Okay, so if I was going to pick one thing, and this is just personal, I would love Justin Timberlake to come back to SNL and do a Dick in a Box style sketch with Andy Samberg at some point. So give me something digital short related, something that's, like that I could send to all my friends just for them to see, because I just think everything JT does on SNL is absolute gold. So that would be my one thing. Okay, so I have these predictions. I have them written down. I'm going to, lock them away in the vault, and we'll open them up at the end of the season and talk about them. So yeah, that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about tonight. I so appreciate you guys coming on. Does anybody have any last words, things that they want to say about season 46 before we kick off the season?
I just want to say that I'm very excited and proud and looking forward to it. That's it.
Yeah. Sorry, Dave, go ahead.
I'm just hoping that they don't have to skip any weeks.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm looking forward to it. I don't know how they're gonna kind of pull this off. I mean, how will there be social distancing in the sketch, or will the band be social distance? How are they gonna do costume changes, set design? Like, this is like the first time anything like this, as far as I know, it's ever been done. So like, I'm really curious and excited to see how they're gonna pull this off. How it's gonna all go down.
Yeah, I think a lot of the details we're still waiting to find out. I know some of them were in that New York Times article, things like them wearing a mask up until the sketches and things like that. But we're going to see how things go. I think, Dave, you said it best that, we just hope they don't have to skip any weeks, and we hope everybody stays safe and healthy. So, look, I so appreciate everybody coming on tonight. It was a lot of fun. It was my first show. So those who are, interested and want to give me some feedback, I want this to be open to the community to tell me what you guys liked, what you didn't like. We're going to have some incredible guests the next few weeks, but it is a work in progress, so cut me a little bit of slack as we go forward. And the number one thing that I encourage is all these people who are on the show tonight are super talented. Go check out their podcasts, go listen to the episodes, because they all have interesting takes that they're going to be saying throughout the entire season. And it's important to me as somebody, if you guys love SNL Stats, then you also love our friends, whether it's SNL After Party, the SNL Nerds podcast, or the SNL Standby Line, or anyone else who joins us this season. Go and support them, because, that's it. We all love the show, and we should all be a part of each other's experience watching the show.
For
Okay.
sure. You've done a great job. It's
Oh,
been
thank you.
great.
Oh,
Thank
that's
you.
so nice.
Well,
Yeah, you're a good host.
thank you. Thank you guys very much. You are all welcome back whenever. And for anybody who's interested, this will be going up on the SNL Stats YouTube page. So make sure to subscribe to our feed, SNL Stats. It should be available on all podcatchers. If not on Apple Podcasts, it'll be up in the next couple of days, and it is available on Spotify as we speak. So go ahead, subscribe, and we will see you next time. So thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.